Hello folks, my name is Liabanasaki from Master Lab Systems. So today we'll be looking at Spring Boot and the MySQL integration. Okay folks, so moving on. First of all, let's look at the objectives for this lesson or for this tutorial. So today we'll be covering setting up MySQL with Spring Boot and creating an entities in the repositories, building and testing the REST APIs, which will be connected with our MySQL database, and also we'll do some basic operations, meaning to read and write to our database using our API. Okay. So first and foremost, folks, what is Spring Boot? As I have already explained in our previous tutorials, what is Spring Boot? So I will recap again. So Spring Boot is a Java framework for building web applications quickly. It reduces the boilerplate code with its built-in support and some built-in configuration. So it also supports some REST APIs and makes it easy for developing APIs, and makes it easy for dependency management and security. So why use MySQL? So using MySQL, which is MySQL is the database with Spring Boot, it gives us a lot of benefits, that as MySQL is an open source and widely used relational database, which also provides a robust support for structured data, meaning in a structured data, a data that is in the format of a table and columns, for example. So also it works very seamless with Spring Boot. So those are our advantages why we are using Spring Boot and MySQL for this demo. Moving forward, folks. Okay, so we'll look at in that. We'll start to set up the Spring Boot project with MySQL. So first and foremost, let's look at the code. So I already got some snippets in my text editor just for the purpose of this demo. I don't want to make it too long, so I'm just gonna copy my snippets, but follow me. And also, if you have any questions, don't forget to post them in the comment section or DM. I will be answering those. Okay, folks. So let's look at our first of all. Let's take a look at our database. So I have a MySQL database here, or a MySQL server, which is running in my PHP, my admin, which is my WAMP server basically. So this is my WAMP server that I'm running, where I'm hosting my databases in. Okay, so we will be using this database to interact with our application, meaning with our REST endpoint. So this database does not have any tables as yet, as you can see. Now tables found in the database, so we'll allow Spring Boot to auto create those for us in the code. Okay, so let's go into the code. Okay, so first of all, as I said in the presentation, that first step we need to add a dependency, and secondly we need to configure which is our configuration file. So let's go in again. Let's add those dependencies for MySQL database. Okay, so if I go in here, and then for example, okay, so these are my dependencies. So I will copy this and paste them in here. Okay, let's paste those in. Okay, so now we have managed to copy those. Okay, so we require the tool, which is the starter JPA one, and also the MySQL connector. So this one, which is the data JPA, it allows us to perform those SQL operations, however, in a Spring Boot way. And this connector is just a connector to allow us to create a connection, or to stabilize a connection with our MySQL database. Okay, so once we add those, we need to reload to Maven, just to inform Maven that currently we have some new dependencies and we need to reload those. Okay, so folks, while it's reloading those new dependencies, what I will just do, I will move on again. Okay, so currently on our last episode, we looked at the product API. However, this time we'll be looking at the user API. We'll be creating a user API. So again, normally my structure in my Java applications, I like the MVC structure, meaning if you have a controller, a model package, repository, and the service. So all of those currently are empty. So first thing is to create the model class, which is the user model. So if we create the user, which is the user model, okay, so here what we need here, it's basically the poacher, which is the plain, or the Java object that we need, meaning it's our getters and setters, constructors, argumented constructors, default constructors, and so on and so on. It's our variable. So okay, so while we have that, okay, so let me just not to away. Okay, so if I copy this, meaning it's already a prepped, and then I just copy. So let me just go fix it up at the top. Okay, so what we have here, folks, it's still the same thing, which is our project class. Okay, so at entity, at table, so this is the table that it needs to create when it runs. It needs to create this table with this name users, and then from now this is our ID, which should be our primary key, and then this is our name, which should be a nullable, meaning it should not be empty, and the unique, it means it's false, meaning it doesn't really have to be unique in this case. However, for this one, meaning the email, as we know, we can't have the same email address, so we need to add that one is true, so that it's unique. Okay, so we'll create the default constructor, and then we create our argumented constructor, or we should do an initialization of this class by setting up which gets those string name and email. Okay, so it does the getters and setters now. Yeah, so that should be fine for the model class. Okay, so from the model, let's look at the repository. So a repository, it's what allows us to interact, or it's what extends our JPA data, meaning it's the class that allows and also that give us the ability to use those features in the Spring Data JPA, so we can be able to interact and process some queries for our database transactions. Okay, so new class, which is this time it's gonna be an interface because it's a repository. So if we say user repository, okay, so this one, it extends JPA repository, which should extend this class, and also it gets what, which is the base class, which is user, as the model, and a what, and also which is what, the ID, meaning what's again the data type for that ID, which is long, so we need to provide a long. Yes, perfect. Okay, so that's fine. We got the repository in. So from here we now need the service class. The service class, so user service, let's create the user service, so which is user service. User service. Okay, I think one thing I'm forgetting, folks. First of all, our second step in our presentation was to go to the configuration, meaning we first needed to go to the configuration, meaning to add some MySQL properties, so this project or this application can be able to communicate with MySQL server. Okay, so if we add those attributes in there, so this is the only thing we need. So if we get that, and then okay, so which is Spring application name. That's fine. Elasticsearch, that's fine. Okay, so this one should come in here. Okay, so now, okay, so we can ignore for these ones, but since this project also communicates with Elasticsearch, so I had to also provide it. But for this demo, this is what you only need, meaning the data source, which specifies the connection type and the endpoint, well, just the connection string or the connection URL. So we are providing it JPA MySQL localhost, that's the port that MySQL server is running on. This is my database. As you can see, as I've already explained, this is the database we'll be interacting with. So this is my database, so we had to provide it there, provide name, so SSR, use SSR, which is false at this time, we don't need that. So we'll provide the username, which is a root, and an empty, which is an empty password. The driver class, we provide that, and the JPA, so which is, since now this thing needs to run some SQL statements, so we need to use the JPA for an ORM to wrap those SQL statements. Okay, so this is the only configuration we need, folks, for our MySQL integration. Okay, so for now we should be good to go with our user service creation. Okay, so if I go there again, just get this, which is the user service. Just gonna get this in. Okay, paste that. Okay, so folks, we have that. So as I mentioned again, so I'm creating what, an instance of my user repository, which is my class, my instance of the class, and then I'm auto wiring it, meaning I'm injecting the dependency, which is the constructor level at this time, not at the field level. I get constructor level, and then my first function, which is to get all our users. So what I do, I get a list of those. Well, it's a list of those, and then I return the list of those, and then as you can see, it's a final my function, meaning it returns all the available users in a list format. Okay, so now this is the save function, meaning this one, it's a save operation. So I get an instance of that class, which is user, and then I save it in the user, okay, and then I save it in my database. Okay, so moving on, folks, that's sufficient enough. So one last thing we need now, which is the controller, the API side. So let's create one more class, which is the user controller. Let's have that one in. Okay, so let's copy it again. Okay, so I just copy, come and paste. Okay, so this is how it looks. So okay, let me just zoom a bit, zoom in now, zoom out a bit. Okay, maybe minimize that. Okay, so this is our user controller. So basically this is where the request has to go, which is at users, which is /users. So as also on my previous tutorials, I have made some integration with Swagger. So since we also want to document this API, we have to also give it a tag. So Swagger can be able to identify this, which is this controller or this API, and be able to document it. Okay, so we give it that and give it some minor description, which is that. So same thing again, we create an instance of the user service, and then we auto wire it, the dependency for it. We inject the dependency using auto wired at a constructor level, and then so this is the first operation that we have, which is the get to all users. So what this means, it returns all of the available users in our database, As you can see, even the operation is saying, which is the summary get all users description retrieves the list of all users. Okay, so which is the second operation or the second endpoint that we are having in this API. So meaning this one, it creates basically it creates a new user. That's what it does. So as I've already explained in the service class, it's pretty much the same thing. So it gets the user instance from the user input and then save that user instance in the user table. Okay, so folks, that should be it. So what I will do now, I'm gonna start up this project. So automatically, once it starts up, it should create the table, which is that users table. It should create it automatically. Then and also initialize, which is our table attributes, which is the names, emails, and IDs. So it should also initialize those. Okay, folks, let me start it up. I will start it up. Let me just double check if all is good. Okay, so our dependencies is added, which is the configuration has been done, and the user model is in, and the user repository is also in, and the user service is also in, and the user controller also in. Okay, let's start it up. Okay, let's view the logs so we can see while it's trying to communicate with our database server. Okay, let's give it some few minutes, folks. It's running the installations and editing those. Okay, it's starting up. Okay, and up. Okay, it's seems to, okay, it's creating those. As you can see on the logs, it's creating my table and also initializing my table attributes. Okay, so alter table. Okay, so unique email. Okay, folks, looks like it started successfully fine. Yes, as you can see on port 881, it is started successfully fine. Okay, so now we should be ready to start testing it. Okay, so if I go in again and I do a refresh of this table, nice one. As you can see, folks, there it is already. It has managed to create the user table, and also, so if we look at inside it, also you can see it has also initialized our table attribute, which is the ID, email, and name. So meaning now we should be able to start interacting with the APIs. Okay, so what I will do, I'm gonna look at into my Swagger API. So if I go to localhost, and there is the Swagger URL. Okay, so if I go to it again, as you can see, so this is the user API. So meaning the new API that we just made now. So if again, let's say we first get some, although we know that it's empty at this stage, it should not return anything even if we try it out, because the user table is empty. Execute. Okay, as you can see, folks, it's an empty list, meaning the user table is empty. So what we then need, let's first supply one user or two. Okay, so ID is auto created, we don't need to worry about that. Okay, so let's look at Scalable, or let's do this admin at scalable.com. Okay, just providing it in the wrong place. Okay, let me put that in email and the name Scalable. That's the first name. Okay, so let's add that. Let's execute. Okay, as you can see, status code, it's 200, meaning the request is successfully sent. And also look at the response body, ID1, meaning this has been created successfully. So let's go ahead and add another one. Okay, so again, none of that. So this time we'll add a test account. Test at masterlab.com. Okay, so let's execute. Okay, number one, also that one is sent successfully. Okay, so now we should be able to do a list. So now let's go and verify first to our database. Okay, so if now we do what? We do a select star from users table. Okay, now number one, folks, as you can see, so our users have been successfully added to our database. So we can see the IFS ID, now second ID, so that's email address, and that's the username, and that's the second user account. So now if also we can attempt to return it or to list those available users from the application side. So if we run this one, which is this get endpoint, so if we do an execute now on this get endpoint, there we go, folks. As you can see, both our users have been saved successfully, and we are able to return those from the input. So we can see a user ID1, and this is the also second user. Okay, folks, I think for now this is all. We have covered all the content for this demo or for this session. Okay, folks, I will be ending here. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comment section. I will be answering those. Also, folks, if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much. I will be seeing you in the next episode. Peace.